Hello and welcome to the channel. One of the most interesting things I've seen in recent months regarding the personal finance sphere comes from the Ramsey Millionaire study. It was published in Chris Hogan's Everyday Millionaires book, and this book looked at the professions that were most likely to become millionaires. And number three on the list after engineers and accountants was teachers. But that can't happen, right? We probably all remember the teachers from our childhood who drove around a beater, and we're thinking, how on earth can these people become millionaires? Is that even possible? It is, and I'm going to show you with some simple math. One of the first things we have to look at when we're trying to figure out how teachers can become millionaires is to figure out exactly how much money they make. And there is this idea out there that teachers make nothing, they barely make enough to survive. Well, I looked up on Google how much teachers actually make. So, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, this is what I found. This website refers to that study, and it says that in 2022, the average teacher's salary for a public school teacher was $66,397. This includes all of the teachers at the bottom of the pay scale to all the teachers at the top of the pay scale, those with just a bachelor's, those with a master's, those with a master's plus 30, those with a doctorate. It's just all of them lumped together. So on average, it's about $66,000 annually. Now, I'll be the first to admit that $66,000 is not a great salary. You're going to have trouble making ends meet if you have a spouse and kids. But I do know in a lot of instances, teachers tend to marry other teachers. The church I used to go to in a small town had about 120 people going on a regular basis. And within that group, there were three couples where both the husband and wife were teachers. So if we double up the $66,000, now we're getting to the point where we have a total family income of somewhere in the $130,000 a year range, which ain't bad. I just want to give the disclaimer that I don't know what my friends were making. They may have been making $50,000 a year. They may have been making $60,000 a year. I'm not sure. But put together, they're probably making somewhere in the six-figure range. But even with that type of salary, won't that make it impossible to become a millionaire because people have trouble saving? Well, this is where the actual state law comes into play. A lot of states require that their employees put a certain amount in toward their retirement. It depends on the state. Some states have what is called a defined benefit plan, where you put a certain percentage towards your retirement, and then they give you a stable amount of money once you hit a certain age or a certain length of service. Other states have defined contribution plans that are kind of like 401k plans, and you put that contribution in, and then you put it towards investments, and it grows in your account. And then when you either retire or die, it goes to you or your beneficiaries, whatever money is in the account. Some states offer both options, but I want to focus on those defined contribution plans because that is the best way for teachers to become millionaires. I'm going to look at a sampling of them, and that should give you an idea of how long and how much it takes to become a millionaire as a teacher. I'm going to start out here with Florida. And if we look up here under the FRS investment plan, which is the defined contribution plan, at the top, we can see that regular employees put in 3% of their salary into their retirement account every single year. Then the state of Florida turns around and puts in 8.3%. So effectively 11.3% of the employee's income is going towards their retirement every single year. After figuring out the combined contribution level between the employer and the employee in a school system, I went to this Bankrate simple savings calculator. And for Florida, I guesstimated $60,000 a year, $5,000 a month. And with that 11.3% contribution rate, that would be around $565 a month. I had to start with an initial deposit of $1 because it won't allow you to start with zero. But anyway, guesstimating an 8% return, which is kind of conservative. You could bump that up to 10 for the S&P 500 over the long haul. Of course, past returns are not necessarily going to indicate what the future returns are going to be, but I went with 8%. And over a period of 30 years, at 8% interest or capital gains with a $565 monthly contribution, you would wind up with nearly $800,000. Now, if you go to 10%, that would be almost $1.2 million. And you're saying, hey, wait, $800,000, that's not a million. But figure most teachers and their spouses are going to buy a house or a condo. They're going to have property that they live in. They're not going to rent forever. And as they pay down the debt on that, their equity will increase. So if you figure, hey, we've got $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 of equity in a house, maybe it's totally paid off and it's worth $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 by that point, you're in the net worth millionaire range. Now we're going to look at the state of Ohio, and it is on the state of Ohio's teacher retirement system website, and they look at the teacher's starting salary guesstimating $42,000, and the member contributes 14%, the employer or the school system contributes 11.9% of that 42,000, which means that you're basically investing 25% of your starting salary of $42,000. If we actually start and leave it at $42,000, that means that you're going to be giving about $850 into your retirement combined, or a little over $10,000 a year. Going back to the simple savings calculator on Bankrate, we can see that an Ohio teacher that starts at a salary of $42,000 a year, putting that 25% into their retirement accounts, they will put about $850 a month. If you compound that for a 30-year period at an 8% return, you're going to have nearly $1.2 million in their retirement account. That's not with any raises. That's just staying at $42,000, putting 25% towards your retirement. That's also not going to include any home equity, and you're still in net worth millionaire status as long as you don't have debts that exceed that. But you might be thinking, Ohio, Florida, those are so-called red states. What about those blue states? Do they have teacher retirement plans that allow teachers to build wealth and become millionaires? In some instances, that's actually a yes. I looked at Washington State, and their most recent update to their teachers' retirement system, Plan 3, allows for contribution rates, requires contribution rates towards a defined contribution plan. And it requires that everybody puts at least 5% of their annual salary to their defined contribution plan. They also have a pension plan that has an annuity. This is on top of that, but it is required. Now, you can opt to give up to 15%, but you are required to give 5%. So I went to the Bankrate calculator, and that led to $350,000 on top of a pension using the same parameters of around $60,000 a year, 5% per year, which is about $250 a month, then putting 8% returns in over a 30-year period, and you'd have about $350,000. Not quite to that $1 million mark, but you are on your way with any home equity. Plus, you have that pension and theoretically Social Security. Although some of the states that have a higher contribution requirement opt out of Social Security, so you would have to check on that. So can teachers actually become millionaires? The answer to that is yes. It's not surprising that there are several millionaire teachers out there because they are required by state law to contribute to these plans. And if they're in a state that requires contributions to a defined contribution plan, that builds up and it becomes your account. And if you're there long enough, you will most definitely become a millionaire as long as the economy does not totally and completely crash and you decide to invest in those types of vehicles that allow you to get a higher return. I do want to give the disclaimer that I'm not a financial planner. Don't have any certifications whatsoever, so be sure to do your own due diligence. This is intended only for educational purposes by looking at what states require teachers to contribute and then trying to figure out, based upon rates of return, whether or not teachers can become millionaires. They can, in fact, become millionaires. With that said, I want to thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If so, if you will be kind enough to drop us a like and also subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so, hit that bell to be notified when the next video comes online. And also, you can help us out by just sharing the content so that more and more people can see this and learn about personal finance.